Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kitchen Table Conversations. I hope everyone's having a good couple of last weeks of summer. I thought today that we would spend a little bit of time talking about the importance of routine and how we all make the transition back to our fall schedules. And for many people, that involves the end of some more flexibility, some relaxing times, and getting back into structure and routine. And in some cases, there's some resistance for our little people to go back to school. So our Ontario Children's Mental Health Association has some really good tips and strategies that can help us prepare our kids, especially those that are experiencing some difficulties. And some of the things that they recommend are for us to really, focus on that relationship that we have with our kids and making sure that they know that they have a safe place to fall, and that the communication lines are open, and that our kids know that they have somebody on their side who really is trying hard to understand and to empathize and to support their transitions and meeting them where they're at. I think this also gives us as parents and caregivers the opportunity to pay attention to how we feel about the transition and how we express ourselves and what kind of mood we're in and what kind of messaging we share. So I think this is really, really important, because when we have a rough day at work, for example, how do we communicate that to our kids? If we're not looking forward to going to work, do we share that in front of our kids? And at what age do we do that? And how do we express our frustrations and how we problem solve with our kids? Because I think this makes a really, really big difference. I hear lots of times parents will sort of dismiss the kids' issues around going back to school and say, these are the best times of your lives, and just appreciate what you have. Wait till you become an adult. You don't want to be an adult. This life is so much harder when you get older. And although I certainly understand where people are coming from, because when you look back, the little issues that kids are experiencing seem to be trivial compared to finding a new job or paying for the vacation or paying for the mortgage and all of these big adult responsibilities. They don't seem to be, but we have to remember that everything is relative. And we also have to remember that if our kids are hearing that being an adult isn't that much fun, I think that takes away some of the allure and some of the hope. And I really feel like we have to be careful around the messaging that we share. I remember as a young person thinking that being an adult was going to be awesome because there was going to be freedom and flexibility and I could make my own decisions, and it was something that I really looked forward to. But I feel like lots of times our parents are tired these days, and that fatigue is natural, and it's okay to be tired, and it's okay to be honest with our kids, but it's also really, really important for our kids to see us overcome these things. And I really think it's important for us to always be prepared to be honest with ourselves and to ask the questions, to ourselves. Ask ourselves, why are we so tired? And what is it that we can do to lighten the load? Because life is not always supposed to be this hard, right? So when life is too hard, and when we're too tired, or when we're not feeling good, or when our relationships are stressed and challenged, and we're not enjoying our parenting journey, for example, then I think those are opportunities for us to be really honest with ourselves and say, why, what's happening, and what do I need to do differently, and who can I go to for help? And I find this really, really interesting, because last week's kitchen table conversation circled around stigma and mental health and mental wellness overall. And I really tried to point out the benefit of prevention, the benefit of noticing when things are not going well, when we're not sleeping as well, when we're not eating as well, when we're not finding joy or excitement, and we just don't have the energy that we used to have. something needs to shift. And sometimes we need to go talk to somebody to explore what that's about. So yesterday, ironically, I'm golfing with a bunch of wonderful women. And, a joke comes up around, you need to talk to your therapist about that. And really, it was, yes, there's humor in it. And I understand, why. And I got a chuckle out of it as well. But I still find it fascinating how these little jokes around our mental wellness are kind of poking fun at and not really doing much to reduce the stigma associated with just the natural benefit to talk to somebody about the stressors. And the bottom line is, there's a lot of stress going on in our world today. So as we said last week, we don't always have to do this alone, right? So there are real benefits to, again, noticing how we're feeling, noticing how we're doing, because when I always say this, and I've taught parenting classes for years, but when mama and daddy ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. So we do need to take care of ourselves, and that means checking in with ourselves and then maybe making a trip to our family doctor just to explore, hey, these are some of the things that I'm experiencing lately. I'm just wondering what I might be able to do differently. If we have a continual headache or a continual shoulder pain or a continual tummy ache, we will go to our doctor and check it out. So if we have a continual low energy or a continual heartache, then I think we do need to be mindful that these can progress into circumstances that become more and more difficult. So again, back to parenting, back to our messaging, watching our moods, watching how we're talking about school, and making sure that we're normalizing the fact that, summer's ending, some of this freedom, some of these warm, sunny days and time spent at the water potentially, or just outside playing ball, those things are going to change. But look at what we get to look forward to come the fall. I think it's really important to validate feelings and say, these transitions are difficult for everybody. What do you think other people do to make these transitions easier? And I think it's so important to express confidence in them, to help them remember when they overcame difficulties in the past, or maybe last year they were a little bit sad about going to school as well, but then remember how much fun you had at this, time and this excursion and this class trip. Those kinds of things can really help. And I think also kids love to hear about us as parents and caregivers and adults who have had difficult times or had worries or, stressed about going back to school or had difficulties with their friends, and how they managed it or how we managed it and how we got to be a little bit better, or what we learned from that situation. Kids love to hear that. It's really interesting because I was working with a little wee guy who's only 5 years old, who really felt like nobody in his life ever made the kind of mistakes that he made or ever had the kind of worries that he has. He looked at his big brother and his big sister and his parents as being these people who have it all together, who never have had difficulties. And that made his worries so much bigger for him. So I was able to give him examples of my worries and my mistakes and things that I went through and things that other kids that his age go through. And he was like, oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay, so I'm kind of normal. This is not that bad. So that can be so validating for folks. The other thing that the Children's Mental Health Ontario suggests that when we're transitioning back to school, and if there is resistance, to make sure that we do our best to find out why there's resistance. Because again, as I was mentioning earlier, most people aren't crazy about the summer ending and going back to school, but they do so because that's the expectation. If they're not, then there's something, their behavior is telling us something. Behavior is communication. So if they're resistant to going back to school, there must be a reason, and it's really helpful if we investigate that. But again, all the while expressing confidence, realistic confidence, and the expectation that this is what we're going to do together. And then to stay committed with that decision that school is important in our house, and this is what we're going to do in order to make whatever accommodations we need or to support this transition in a good way. And then sometimes when there are special considerations or some emotional difficulties or some learning difficulties or some real anxiety and fear and discomfort, then we have to sometimes approach this gradually and allow kids to, transition at their own pace, which is, it's recommended that school is attended every day, but maybe we do half days for a little bit, or maybe we gradually work in, but I really do encourage that we have the children and the adolescents a part of those conversations and making sure that we're hearing loud and clear what they need, but also what they need to do also in order to make sure that this return to school goes as well as it possibly can. So check out my website for a few more links to resources that can be helpful as we wind down these summer months. And thanks so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful week. Angela.